Hi, friend. CJ here. Ben Simmons. Brandon Ingram. The two big talents. They were projected to go number one and number two, specifically in that order by today. Did the Sixers make the right decision? Did the Lakers make the right decision? Yes. And yes. Let's start off with Ben Simmons. Actually, before we even start off with Ben Simmons, the Sixers have a long way to go. We all know that they've had some historically awful teams in recent years. I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, so I know about that. We can talk about tanking and this whole this movement to be bad for draft picks, but there's no disputing that it worked. The ping pong balls went the Sixers' way, and they won the number one pick. And in previous years, they got the number three more than once. They ended up with Joel Embiid, and we already knew about the screw in his foot then. And they picked up Jahlil Okafor, and you started wondering after a while, are the Sixers going to end up with the number two pick at some point, let alone number one? As a fan, my feeling was if they ended up with the number two pick, that would be good because both of these top two players, both of these top two prospects have the potential to be special. But getting the number one pick, that's really special. So about Ben Simmons, he's 6'10". Yeah, there are taller guys in the draft, but that's still good enough, obviously. He's ready to play, meaning that he'll be able to make some plays in his first year. He's great with the basketball, great hand skills, knows how to move the basketball around. But something that really struck me watching footage of him is the way he drives to the net. And yeah, he gets a lot of free throws, but he also makes a lot of plays driving to the net. And it isn't even just that. The guy can rebound, and I heard from the analysts that he's a better rebounder statistically than Kevin Love was in college. And if you saw the way Kevin Love rebounded in Game 7 of the finals, if Ben Simmons ends up making, those kind of plays, then whew, fantastic. A lot's been said about Ben Simmons' ability to pass the ball, and that's apparently one of his strongest skills, and some say it's his strongest skill. What he hasn't done yet is shoot the three. He barely has attempted the three last year, but there's something to be said about that. Shooting skills can be developed. And if the Sixers believe that this guy can shoot the three, if they believe that that's a skill he can develop, then they're going to develop it. And if not, then, well, it's not going to happen. And he's going to be a guy who drives to the net, makes big plays up close and personal, shoots free throws, and he'll be that kind of guy. He's been described as a forward who can play like a point guard. Fine by me. That's fine by me. So I thought it was cool. They talked about Ben Simmons' dad today, David Simmons, who, this is an awesome story. And I don't use the word awesome lightly. I'm not one of those people. But he played for the current Sixers coach, Brett Brown. And Ben Simmons Instagrammed out a picture of him in Sixers gear, and the term trust the process, which has been specifically for the Sam Hinkie years about how, yeah, we might not win right away, but we're trying to build a championship team. Trust the process, we'll get there. And it's just so cool to know that Ben Simmons, whatever I believe, whatever anyone believes about this idea of tanking and principle, it doesn't sound like something to brag about, but you know what? This is the system that the NBA has created, and maybe the system should be improved upon, and that doesn't necessarily excuse anything, but that's the story. I mean, those are the rules as it stands, and I know about the meeting the Sixers had with the NBA about the idea of tanking, and the Sixers can deny that the NBA forced their hand with the Colangelo stuff, but and I'm not saying that those moves were necessarily bad. Obviously, Sam Hinkie theoretically resigned under his own will, so there's that. Bottom line, Ben Simmons has a lot of skills, a variety of skills. I think he's going to be a great NBA player. Whether he ends up being a big three-point shooter or not, that's probably not going to happen, but he might become adequate at it. They might be able to develop a solid three-point shot out of Ben. And given everything else he can do with the rebounds and passing and driving up close through the paint, making big plays, geez, this guy can be a piece of a real contender. So now let's talk a little bit about Brandon Ingram and the Lakers pick. Obviously was the only pick to be made. Who else were they going to take at number 2? I think the Celtics surprised quite a few people with the Jaylen Brown pick, and we'll see about that one. But Brandon Ingram, the Lakers claimed that if they had the number 1 pick, they would have taken Brandon Ingram anyway. That's easy to say. Maybe they would have. I see no reason to believe that they were lying. So maybe, it's funny because some people thought that Ben Simmons might try to force his way to LA. Well, if it's true that the Lakers preferred Brandon Ingram all along, then that wasn't going to happen. I have no idea what the truth is. No one knows for sure. But here's what I can tell you about Brandon Ingram. Very good three-point shooter right away. It's not going to be hard to develop an NBA three-point shot from him. He's ready to go. The biggest issue people talk about with him is that even though he is already strong, has a great what they call wingspan, that's great, but he needs to put on some more weight, a little more muscle mass so that he can get a little more personal and make big plays in close-up situations. But he's the safest pick in the entire draft, isn't he? I mean, in my opinion, Ben Simmons has more potential, and if I had the number 1 pick, I would have drafted Ben Simmons, so I'm a happy Philadelphia fan tonight. Yeah, happy Philadelphia fan. Yes, we do exist, thank you very much. But Brandon Ingram is practically bust-proof. I know there's been talk about ESPN's analytics and them saying that he's practically bust-proof, and he pretty much is. I mean, he's really versatile, just all the skills he has. He has a lot of range as far as where he can take shots from. Obviously, as I said, he's a three-point shooter, but he can make those closer two-point shots as well. So he's very consistent, and I like that. I mean, the guy makes good plays. He makes big plays, and he does it with reliability. Yeah, he's a good passer. Maybe not a Ben Simmons passer, but he's a good passer, and he controls the ball very well, gets the rebounds. Maybe not quite as well as Ben Simmons, but you know what? It's a skill that he has, and he can do it. Even if he's not the fastest guy, and he's not slow, but I think he's an all-around good player. There's some skills to develop. I don't know if you can develop speed. That's more something you either have or you don't have at the end of the day. But all around, his skill set is pretty solid, and the pick was obvious. Who else were they going to take at the number 2 pick? I mean, some people thought Chris Dunn would go number 3, and Chris Dunn fell to Minnesota. So it was an obvious pick. He's the word that I have in mind here is immediate. He's someone who, again, of all the players in this draft, he's the one with the most, the best, strongest ability to go in there right away and make good plays, big plays, as both an offensive player and a defensive player. Now, it remains to be seen what the Lakers are going to do with D'Angelo Russell. No one knows for sure. Russell received a message from the Lakers saying, don't worry about it. All the stuff people are saying about you potentially being dealt, don't fret. So we'll see what happens with D'Angelo. But you got to wonder what's going to happen in LA, because obviously they're trying to turn over a new leaf, and with Kobe retired, they're going to try to build their way back up now. And it's going to be interesting to see how they pull that off in terms of their roster. What sort of moves are going to be made, because there are moves that are going to be made. They're going to shuffle someone, and whether it's D'Angelo or not, I think that's where the signs have been pointing, but the fact of the matter is they haven't done it yet. But anyway, Brandon Ingram, all around strong player. He's a perimeter shooter, and that's something you need to compete in this league when you have teams like the Golden State Warriors launching up threes as if there's no tomorrow. So, bottom line, Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram, in my mind, are both very strong prospects. I would have been happy to have either one on my team. I do prefer Ben Simmons, and I don't want to be too strong about it because, as I said, I think Brandon Ingram can be a piece. I think Brandon Ingram can be a piece of a championship contender ultimately, and he doesn't need as much development as other players in this draft do. But I think Ben Simmons, there's only one LeBron James. There was only one Michael Jordan. So I'm not comparing him necessarily to the top 5 to 10 best players who've ever played this game. If he ends up having that sort of career, then we'll talk about it. But there's not a single doubt in my mind that Ben Simmons can develop into being a really, really special player. And for the first time since Allen Iverson, the first time around, I feel like the 76ers are, maybe not next year, but over the next several years, I think they're going to start doing some cool things.